as tempting as it is to just let that loop run with that music indefinitely, I suppose we should get started. Thanks, as always, to Steve Nathans Kelly, our producer, for not only doing a great job of manning or personing the board, so to speak, but also putting together great intro music. I'm Eric Schumacher Rasmussen. I am the CMO of Ideas, and I'm also conference chair for Streaming Media Events. Welcome to day 3 of our 8th Streaming Media Connect. At this point in the conference, I always feel like I should say, stop me if you've heard this before, because some of you have. But we are going to be back in Huntington Beach for Streaming Media West in November 15th and 16th. Steve will pop the link to the program in the chat. We'll be populating that program with speakers soon. So if you're interested in speaking at Streaming Media West, there's still time. Please get in touch with me. And if you want to register, all the information you need to register will be right there as well. Just a few housekeeping notes. Just for being here, you're entered into a drawing to win an Amazon gift card, and we'll announce the winner at the end of each session. One caveat, though, you must be present to win. So be sure to stick around. Not that you won't anyway. If you have questions for our panel, please put them in the Q&A tab at the bottom of your Zoom window. It's easier for us to keep track of them if they're there rather than in the chat. Subtitles are turned on, or will be soon if they're not. I see they are. If you want to turn them off, you can go to the bottom of your Zoom window, click on Live Transcript, and select Disable Transcript. And finally, all of the Streaming Media Connect sessions will be available on demand, along with the rest of our conference content. But these sessions will be available starting Monday at youtube.com/streaming media video. Again, a link that Steve will pop in the chat. I'd like to thank our diamond sponsor, Media Silo, who are sponsoring this entire week's or whole 3 days worth of sessions. And we have a brief video message from them now. Also like to thank the sponsor for this session, Evertz, and Dan Turow from Evertz will be joining this discussion, a discussion about free ad-supported television. Is it the future of OTT? Lots of thoughts on that. We've got a great group of panelists and a great moderator who will be familiar to many of you who have watched Streaming Media Connect before, Magnus Svensson from Eyevinn Technologies. Magnus, coming to us from Sweden. How are you?
Good morning. Calling in from sunny Stockholm in Sweden. It's usually a bit later, though, when I'm moderating these panels, but today it's actually afternoon. So
I know, we're used to seeing you in the dark, so this is kind of a nice
exactly.
variation. Without any further ado, I will let you take it from here.
Thank you, Eric. Like Eric said, we have a great panel and a great topic. I think this is my 3rd or 4th panel in Streaming Media Connect or similar when talking about FAST and the FAST channel creation and future of OTT. So I think this will be really interesting. So by that, I'll introduce myself very quickly. My name is Magnus Svensson. I work at a company called Eyevinn Technology in Sweden. We're independent media's technology and strategy experts with our customer base are global, where we're helping our media companies with development, strategy, technical advice, due diligences, and everything surrounded streaming. But that's not why we're here. We will discuss FAST and the future of OTT. And by that, I'll start introducing the panel members that will contribute with great insights. And to start with, we have Cameron. Reveal yourself and present yourself.
Can you guys see me?
Yes.
Fantastic. Good morning, everybody. My name is Cameron Salas. I'm the Chief Business Officer of Trusted Media Brands. Trusted Media Brands is a digital media business and publishing business. We have a portfolio of well-known brands, including Reader's Digest, Taste of Home, Fail Army, Pet Collective. We reach around 250 million people on a global basis across all our different platforms. And specific to FAST, we currently operate 4 channels on about 30 different platforms. We were very much an early mover in the space and really enjoyed building it alongside a lot of the folks here on this panel. And just glad to be here. Great to meet everybody.
Great, welcome, Cameron. Dan, you can stay on camera.
Hello,
as well.
everybody. Yep. Hey, you can see me there? All good?
Where's you?
Okay. Hi, I'm Dan Turow. I'm the VP of File-Based Solutions at Evertz. I run the business unit that's focused on playout automation, media asset management for traditional broadcast, but also for Evertz.io, which is our SaaS solution for fast channels and fast channel-based distribution and technologies like that. So pleased to meet everybody.
Great. And Elizabeth, welcome.
Hi, good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are. I'm Elizabeth Parks, the president and CMO of Parks Associates. We are a market research and consulting firm, and we track and study the adoption of all emerging technologies for consumers and business. And we have a special focus in on the OTT and video markets, along with broadband services, pay TV, and all connected devices. We're also tracking close to 400 OTT services in North America, where we are estimating their subscriber numbers, along with keeping track of all the details around those services. So we serve the market with our business intelligence and really appreciate the opportunity to join you all today.
Great. And Jonathon.
Hello, Jonathon Barbato. I am co-CEO of Best Ever Channels. We launch media, streaming media channels, and we've got 7 up currently on about 8 platforms and counting. We have a couple more coming this fall. Spin, which is the iconic music brand, is joining with us to launch a channel, as well as Wits, which is a comedy channel in conjunction with The Stand in New York. My partner and I have been in the business long enough to know the history and play with the big boys, and like to think we're the independent for the independents.
Oh, that was a good title. And last but not least, Marisa.
Good morning, everybody. I am Marisa Elizondo. I am a VP of Content Strategy and Acquisition at fuboTV. We are a live sports-first TV streaming service, cable replacement, if you will. We have about 50,000 live sporting events a year. I was hired to lead up our English language broadcast and cable network partnerships, and with that come our new FAST strategy. So thanks for having me.
Great. As you can tell, we have a great panel here that will be able to walk you through the coming 50 minutes of FAST, and it will run fast, I promise. To start off with, we have asked Elizabeth to share some data and some facts to set the scene a bit and get us all up to speed on the latest development of FAST and some numbers there. So please go ahead, Elizabeth.
Yeah, thank you very much. And again, this data set is coming from Parks Associates' quarterly survey work of 10,000 internet households, where consumers are responding to our questions about how they consume video and also the adoption of different products. So to help set the stage, I can tell you that now 60% of internet households have a smart TV. 83% subscribe to an OTT service. Now over 50% subscribe to 4 or more OTT services, and 22% subscribe to 9 or more services. And so obviously, as competition is increasing, service providers are experimenting with different pricing models, and that lends itself to the rise of the AVOD services. And so now we also know that 31% of households, or about 34 million households, report watching ad-based services. And a third of those have used that in the past 30 days. So we're also seeing how consumers are engaging with television differently. 25% of consumers report that they would likely try a co-viewing feature, and this would certainly apply to things like sports betting and interactive stats showing up on the screen, or any kind of social media and social interaction that can go on while consumers are engaging in video viewing. So certainly a lot to talk about with hybrid models, the power of the bundle, super competitive and fragmented market, and uber high expectations, I think, from consumers on what needs to happen with the ability to find content and really have that ultimate experience that they're looking for. So thanks again for letting me share a little bit of our research. And if anybody has any questions about the data, feel free to reach out to me as well.
Great. I think that it's amazing stats now. And anyone in the panel that has some comments on the facts we heard, or want to comment on any of the trends that Elizabeth reported on?
Sure.
Yeah, I'll comment. I think that one of the things that I find most interesting that Elizabeth commented on is the audience's interest in what I would call a companion app functionality, live chatting or betting, as she said, on sports. I mean, I think TV has only been a one-way stream by technology and chance, not because that's what people wanted. And we're finally coming to the age where the technology and the true desires can catch up. So it's just a matter of time before people are not just watching TV, but actually interacting with it, interacting with the stars, participating in the production from here's what I want to see next perspective. I think that's that's where we're headed.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I was also a little bit surprised that I was hoping that it was not a pandemic situation where people were co-watching and these type of things, but I've been waiting for a while now to get into actually using the technology with streaming and interactivity that we can. Cameron, I think you waved a bit. You had some comments as well.
Yeah, I'm just blown away by the numbers that Elizabeth sort of laid out. I mean, just a few years ago, I think it's 60% penetration of smart TVs is obviously, I think, the key one to have, to build an industry that we're trying to build here. And just a few years ago, that was fairly tiny. So it's just incredible how quickly, obviously just the technology rolling out, but then, you have the audience following it, right? We've had the great unbundling, and now we're having the great bundling again. So, folks didn't want to spend $200 for cable. They love the fast services, and now it's all being bundled back up again. So it is a fascinating sort of life cycle that we're watching right in front of us.
Yeah, I think, Dan, you looked like you had something as well. So,
yeah, I think there was a couple interesting things in there. And I do see there is a merging of not just file-based playback, but also the integration of live, and what we see in the OTT space and the fast space. So having both those functions available and easily deployable is something I think is really, really important. But the other thing in there is actually the interactivity part of it. There's a bunch of technologies that people are working on, including ourselves, that allow the consumer on their connected device to interact personally with the actual content and pull up stats and graphics and other interesting facts for them that make it a better engagement for them. So enabling that, just a better user experience to make the retention longer, right? Get people more engaged. You mentioned kind of a multi-person kind of thing. Adding watch parties into those types of applications is really, from what we've seen, expanding the reach and the attractiveness of the solution. And yeah, one really big thing I think you mentioned there, if we can use those data sources and the interactive things to get into things like betting and things like that, there is a huge base of sports fans with betting interest that if you can merge all these things into one, there's a really powerful consumer attractive solution that seems to be coming together these days.
Dan, are you sure you're not working for fuboTV secretly?
I was about to say that. It sounded like a Fubo speech.
You've hit a lot of my points already. I too agree that I think the connected TV stat is a good one. We see about 90% of our live viewing is on sports. The stat about having 9 different services, that reaches home. For us, it's as a distributor and as an aggregator of content, for us, we're trying to do our best to have a one-stop shop and make it easy for all customers to be able to come in and get the content you want and not have to subscribe to, to 9 different services. We're not naive to think that folks may not have ancillary services besides fuboTV, but we think that, you know, that's part of our challenge, and what we're good at is trying to have that aggregated service, have a little bit of everything while still maintaining that sports focus for everyone.
Yeah, great. Maybe not so much in Europe, but what I see in the US is that we're getting a lot of fast channels and a lot of alternatives, and it's getting a little bit more crowded now than a couple of years ago when we first talked about the concept. So how do you see the consolidation? And maybe it's harder to launch new channels, and it's how do we not ending up in a huge cable bundle again, and like you said, the cyclical evolution of things, bundling, unbundling. So how can we fight the consolidation, or not fight, but how can we handle the harder to launch channels and the crowded market of fast channels? Cameron?
Well, I think the challenge is, you know, we used to have a lot of independent platforms, and Fubo is a good example of that, who are coming with a new point of view. And what's happened is there's been a tremendous amount of consolidation in the last 18 months. You know, with Tubi getting bought by Fox, and, you know, Viacom and Comcast. And so, you know, those bigger companies are going to revert back to the mean, right? They're going to go back to what they know, which is your traditional cable bundle. So there's no question it's much more competitive to launch new channels. There's no question there's a higher bar to get your channel on the platform. In some cases, that's actually good. There needs to be a level of quality. There needs to be a certain amount of programming. This space is maturing, but I also feel like we're taking choice away from the user again, which was really the problem in the early days. So I love seeing more independent, more unique services coming out. You've all seen rumors of Google launching something that isn't tied to a big media company. There's a bunch of those things still out there. There needs to be more choice, and I would hope that, you know, the larger platforms that are owned by the bigger media companies look at this as an opportunity to do something different and to reach a younger audience. At least that's what we're positioning ourselves from that perspective.
Jonathon, is that the same thing you see from Best Ever Channels, or?
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything that Cameron's saying, and I think it is a good thing in some respects. I think, you know, when the real estate was wide open, everyone was launching a channel, and sometimes the same content ended up on 2-3 different channels. You know, it was more of a real estate grab. So the consolidation is a natural market adjustment, I think, to that. So long as we don't lose the independence, you know, so long as the big guys that are buying up, you know, the independents aren't just diving into their libraries and making that enough. I think that finding content and creating content, economically feasible content, but content that can, you know, stand out and make a channel different and attract an audience that maybe, you know, is neglected on other channels because they have a very special content interest. I think that's where we're headed, and at least that's where I hope we're headed.
Marisa, you were nodding a lot. It feels like you're agreeing.
Yeah, I was thinking, it's interesting. I mean, we've kind of shifted and pivoted to the and embraced the fast strategy and the fast channels over the past 12 months or so. Our concern was, oh gosh, from, you know, if folks turn on their TV and they have a Samsung TV and they realize they can get that content there, if they're coming over to Fubo and spending $70 on a package, are they going to realize, hey, is this a value add, or is this, am I getting gypped? So we kind of took our time to kind of go through and figure out, okay, you know what, we think it'll be a value add to folks to add it. We've tried to stay true to our sports roots, and we have been selective about with what comes on the platform and what comes off the platform. I mean, we recently launched some of the Trusted Media Brand channels, and some of them, you know, one, Cameron's a good sales guy, but two, they are sports related. Like, there's nothing like it available now. You know, a fail is a fail, but people are doing it on skateboard and on skiing, right? And in the ocean. And so for us, that kind of helped us stay true to our sports roots. We're not, you know, we do realize we want to have a good smattering of content for everyone. I don't think we need 20 zombie apocalypse channels. You know, we are trying to have a little bit of everything, because we know most folks in our households, you know, do have families. But we are being selective because we don't want to just be a copy paste of the traditional cable platform.
So Dan, how do you see things? You're raising your hand.
Yeah, actually, John made a really good point. I think, and it's probably underlying some of the competitiveness in the market. There's also an element, how do we streamline and make the producing of content more efficient and more effective, right? So we're putting in a fair number of tools that can, in an automated way, pull out of even some of the live sporting stuff in terms of replays or teams, automating the ability to pull out, let's say, focused replays or shots of a particular NBA player, or a particular type of shot where you can zoom in an automated way to generate multiple versions of the same content that are then serving different elements of the market. So that makes the cost of production for targeted things way down, which may actually be beneficial for some of those people that they really want to look at this, but that's not available for them today. So reducing the cost of that production in an automated way is something that we see as kind of important, that we're doing in a lot of our SaaS-based solutions and instant replay solutions for live sports type stuff.
Elizabeth, do you see any things in your research when it comes to, are we getting saturated already, or is it room for more channels, more platforms, or do we need to start limiting ourselves, making it harder to launch new channels?
Well, it certainly is more difficult to launch a new channel, and I think that the power of the bundle that we've seen historically is going to rise again here, because there has to be some consolidation so that consumers can understand really where to go to watch the content. And I think the difference now is that the bundle can be so much, right? It can be well beyond just packaging channels together. You've got all sorts of other service providers, you've got social influencers, you've got brands and advertisers who are looking for an audience. And I think that's going to create a much different dynamic in how things get moved forward with that bundle. So we're going to see all sorts of different bundles, and some of that's going to really push in the in-app purchasing opportunities, which is going to really be generating a lot of revenue. We've seen Roku, launch all sorts of stuff in that area successfully. And so, that speaks to the engagement and the personalization and all the software that comes along with that to help understand, how to target consumers based on what they're watching and what they may want to see. So I do think the bundle is a big deal. I think, NPS scores with bundles are higher. The more bundles you have, the higher engagement, the more likely people are to recommend services. So I think the next 12 to 18 months is going to be really interesting.
Marisa, you touched upon it, but where are the platform owners' responsibility of moderating and keeping this to a decent level?
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, for us, it is about selectivity and keeping, true to our roots. We live by the mantra of come for the sports and stay for the entertainment. We realize we want to draw folks in for a game or a match, and then after the fact, after that hour and a half or 2 hours over, then what? We're trying to keep people in the Fubo ecosystem by giving them good entertainment. I think for us, it is trying to, we don't want to launch channels and have them live in Siberia. So the channels that we have been launching, the fast channels we've been launching, we have kind of been putting them through in the UI with other channels of their genre. We want customers to be able to experiment and have a good discoverability, try to find those channels and try new things. So we think all ships will rise. We think the fast channel space creates good competition from the linear side, right? From the traditional linear guys have to stay on their game as far as what they're being able, keeping content fresh, because there's a lot of new digital first guys that are out there looking for their bucks and their eyeballs.
Yeah. And from the content side, Cameron and Jonathon, how do you see things of getting, you mentioned that it's harder to get new channels out there, and how do you see the cooperation with the platform owners?
Well,
yeah, I think it's important.
Sorry. Go ahead, Cameron.
I think it's important that, you know, we offer some differentiation to platform owners as well. I think over the next 18 to 24 months, you'll start to see closer collaborations with different platforms around, you know, co-producing and windowing certain types of content. I think certainly you guys have already previewed some of the technological stuff and viewing that might be added to provide different experiences across all the platforms. There's still a lot we can do, even though kind of the core business is starting to mature a little bit more. On the programming side, we have to create a bigger, we have to all make more money, right? Ultimately, I mean, this is growing really, really quickly, which is fantastic. I think the monetization is catching up with the viewership. That's what we want to see from an advertising perspective, but we need to move beyond just advertising. I think commerce is a really big opportunity in the FAST space. I think there's a ton of different things that we should be thinking about and to create both an engaging but also differentiated offering for all the different platforms.
I agree. And I think as an extension to that, the platforms are wanting that differentiation. And, you know, the reason why we need more money in the system is so that we can afford to create, you know, content that has a little higher quality to it, that's original, that does differentiate the channels, but also differentiates the platforms. And so the best approach from our perspective is to partner with the platforms. You know, we have somewhat of a radical view when it comes to original content, in that we think it's getting that content watched that matters the most, whether it's watched on, you know, a Vizio original channel or whether it's watched on our channel or both. You know, really doesn't matter. What matters is let's get it out there, let's get it monetized, let's, you know, differentiate ourselves from everyone else. So I think you have to be creative in and definitely look for that differentiation.
Yeah, I think you're touching upon the next topic that I thought of bringing up is the content and the programming side of things, and how the balance should be between long tail and premium original content, and how do you guys see that? It's maybe Dan wants to comment on the mix of content, or as maybe the least biased people in this panel when it comes to premium versus long tail.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things there that maybe leads into a slightly different topic that I think kind of we touched on. It's really one of the things that I think the platforms really need to look at is how can I actually discover content in a better way? A lot of the platforms are quite clunky, and people do get kind of frustrated finding that content and then viewing it. So how do we make that experience a little bit better so that it can continue to grow and actually flywheel on itself? I think there's some things that need to be looked at there. If we can make that experience better, the platforms themselves will actually grow. Sorry. And in terms of the split between original and kind of long tail and original, yeah, that's a really tough one. As much kind of new original content you can get cost effectively, more power to it, because that will only make it grow, and that will allow the kind of some of the fast platforms to compete against you know, other platforms where the media companies own the premium content and the platform. So that's a little bit of a difficult spot there, right? So if you can make original content and make it more cost effectively using some tools, I think that'd be very interesting, because there is that push in the market where, yeah, expensive original content is kind of over here in these platforms, it's not over here in these. So how can you increase the quality of the production that you're doing and maybe target it more using tools to make it more cost effective is maybe something that we see as an area where we can actually help the market a little bit. But more original content, more money spent on it, which is always difficult, will help the fast platforms. So as much of that as you can actually do, I think would help the more generic fast platforms. But yeah, then there's, of course, you still need to monetize the stuff that has been out there, has been depreciated. So get as much as you can, every single drop from the long tail content as well, right?
Well, Cameron, how do you see it and the mix of these things, and also getting independent content into the mix?
Yeah, I think, look, it's the life cycle. We're in the middle of the life cycle, right? In the early days, when this thing first launched, it was wheels of short form content. That's how we got involved when I was part of Jukin Media. And that was a quick, cost effective way to get up and and to see if people were interested in it. We were blown away by the interest of watching this kind of content on a television screen. I think over the last couple of years, you've started to see, the traditional media guys come in with their vast libraries of content that they spent millions on in traditional television. They're bringing it to fast channels. That makes a ton of sense. There is a good mix of content out there today between, but no one's producing Game of Thrones. We do not have an industry yet that can support that. So I think, going forward, there's a few different things. I think, first of all, I think Dan said discoverability is really important, right? If we can solve for discoverability, which has always been a challenge, that means, the best content rises to the top. People have access to things they haven't seen before, and we don't end up watching the same old thing. I think we have to grow the pie. The more that the channel providers can generate revenue, the more they can invest back into the programming. And for us, it's a mix of programs. So we have, 3 different types of programming that we use to program our channels. We have originals, which we shoot ourselves, which are at a much higher price point, not Game of Thrones price point, but very, very, very quality product. We have what we call enhanced, which is where we're taking talent and taking existing content, whether it's either licensed or produced in-house, and creating engaging content from that perspective. And then we've also curated a lot of content from all over the world that we use to sort of fill out the channels, right? And over time, more and more of the programming that we have is of the originals, right? So over the past 4 years, more and more of that has been higher performing content. But you need that mix in order to provide something different to the audience versus what's on cable. And you need that mix to be successful because of the economics that we're currently all dealing with. I think hopefully in the next 2 or 3 years, we'll all be making more money. We can pour more of that back into create even better programming. But I think mix is important. I hope we don't end up in 2 years where we're just watching the same shows that were produced on AT&T or NBC or something like that.
Yeah, Jonathon, any comments to that? And how will all
Yeah,
the
I think
content
mix is
be
the key, and
monetized?
I look at mix from the perspective of the audience. So let's just take Spin magazine channel, for example. Spin has original curated content, cover stories. They're doing interviews on an ongoing basis. Some of them may even qualify to be true live or live, right? But the music audience wants to see rock docs too. They want to see the stuff that they know, and they want to see music videos. So it's really making the mix for the audience and what they want, including originals, but also including long tail, but in a programming schedule, in a branded way, rather than just sort of taking content and throwing it up there and hoping people discover and watch it. I think that's the key. I mean, we're going to do the Spin Music Awards next year. That's people are going to want to watch that live. That's different than music videos and some of the other content, but all of it's important.
Do we see a need for do we see that channels are getting removed, so we don't end up in 200-300 channels and the last 200 no one is really watching and not get monetized? Will they stay on, or will we see a constant curation of the number of channels in the platforms?
Well, right now it's a little bit of
it.
natural selection. I mean, if you go to Roku, there's thousands of channels, but not thousands of channels watched. So so the audience is governing that to some degree. But I also think as things fill up, people are going to need to take something off to put something else on, and I think we're actually moving into that phase of the industry pretty quickly, actually.
But are we then risking that we're losing the independent small niche channels that very few watch in competition with the large shows, the originals, the more costly shows?
I mean,
Well,
I think
the risk is there, but let's hope not. I'm sorry, Cameron, I don't know what to do.
no. I was just going to say, look, there has to be a bar, right? We need to avoid the scenario where, this is obviously a fast growing, really popular area, and that attracts everybody, right? And so you've got to have a bar. There needs to be a certain amount of programming on a channel. You need to program it a certain way. I think 2 or 3 years ago, people were phoning it in and just throwing up whatever, just organizing it into a wheel and just putting up there. Like we have a dedicated team. We program it like television. We have day parting. We're really thoughtful about that. So there's got to be a bar. On the other end of the spectrum, it comes back to discoverability. I think we want thousands of channels that people can access. If there's something that you're passionate about and you're interested in, you should be able to find a channel that has quality programming. And I think if we can use that sort of programming bar as sort of a forcing mechanism and then add discoverability to it, it's really going to benefit everybody.
Marisa, how do you balance this with the big sports and the big events with the more niche sports and maybe a little bit less popular things? How do you balance that so you still get both on your platform?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, and it's something we dabble with kind of on the daily. I mean, we are looking to have a constant curation. The good thing is that Fubo is a relatively young company, right? We're 7 years old. And so we don't fit within the boundaries of the traditional space. So we are free to experiment, and we have with what we think is right. Pretty sure the founders of Fubo would have never imagined in 2022 we would be launching as many fast channels and we would be as present in the fast space as we are. That being said, we want to make sure that the new channels that we've added to the platform have a chance to bake, that folks can find them, and that we give them a shot. And so I don't think it's fair for us to say, we are looking for things and we are being selective. And like I said, we want to have a good general entertainment offering outside of the main sports focus. But we also want to give, channels a shot, especially for the newer brands or digital brands that may or not be as well known as the HDTVs of the world, et cetera. So for us, it's a matter of launching them and then, taking a risk to add them and maybe taking a risk to take them down if at some point we feel like it, they're not pulling their weight from a viewership perspective.
Elizabeth, do you see any trends when it comes to or any research regarding content discovery and especially cross platforms? How do you find your channels between the different platforms and within the platforms? And do you see any research trends moving in that direction?
Well, certainly content is king for consumers in terms of, why they're going to specific services. And so that's going to, continue to be a driving point. And then the personalization that can be applied to what consumers are doing to show the next upcoming shows and or certain programming that would align with that kind of viewing is also going to be really important with introducing new shows. We know that 32 million households are what we call OTT hoppers, meaning that they're moving around all sorts of channels. And so there's just so many different options now for what consumers can watch. And certainly the niche content, the sports content, the live content, the news, the weather, these are things that consumers also want and are willing to watch advertising. They're also willing to maybe pay for, some hybrid mixed models in there or premium services. So there's a ton of options. And I think the industry has to really work hard with that role of discovery and the investment in the technologies for the end user experience.
Yeah, I think we just got a very similar question from Ashok that I think you actually answered pretty good here. I think we should move on to curating live and a mix of live and recorded assets. I know Dan has touched upon it a couple of times, and do you want to elaborate a bit how you see the trend is evolving with mixing in live events with fast channels?
Yeah, I think we touched on it a little bit earlier, but from what I can see, things have obviously moved from the early days of just throwing up a reel and playing that reel and looping it around and around to getting better content and more unique content that includes the live stuff. So we've actually done a fair bit of work to enable that, to make it simpler and lower cost to actually do and fragment the market down so that even some of the local stations or whatever, they can actually very quickly do up different versions of what they want to do, integrating in a live feed, which could be a news anchor, right, from a local thing, and then switching back. So fractionalizing and regionalizing those things, and of course making them discoverable is really important too. But integrating in a live and making it simple to do in a low cost way, so you can spin up. And I think Marisa mentioned it. Spin it up, try it out, without a huge amount of investment in it. If it doesn't actually work, fine, we're done, shut it back down. It's only OpEx, you have your cost scale with your business. If it doesn't work, you need a flexible platform to spin it back down. So we've kind of done some of that stuff to integrate in the live with some of the file-based content, of course. So that's one thing. But also, as you get into the more, I'd say, higher tier live stuff, monetizing that to the maximum degree that you can is super important. And we've done a bunch of stuff with like Yes Network, for example, where they wanted to keep people on the platform longer, monetize it, give them some extra data to actually make the experience better, but also look at, okay, how can I do targeted advertising within that live stream? How can I enable betting within that live stream? And again, that feeds into some regionalization stuff and localization and frame accuracy of the thing. So I think there's a lot of stuff that can be done and is continuing to be done to integrate in the live element with that other content to keep, I think Marisa said, get them there for the live event and then fill it out with additional stuff and monetize it as long as you can. So I see a lot of that actually going on in the market now.
Yeah, I think Marisa, you had some comments around as well. And how can you make the live broadcasting or the live events more personalized with personalized feeds and different commentators and these type of things, and make it more attractive than maybe a broadcast live?
Sure. So we have worked specifically on this and some of the feature sets that we have rolled out specifically last year. We launched a feature called Fan View. So we've been trying to give our customers the ability to either lean in or lean back. Lean back if you want to watch a game, enjoy it, watch a movie, enjoy. Lean in if you want to figure out, if you want to see more stats, you want to have some free to play games, you're watching a soccer game, who do you think is going to win, make the next goal, Argentina or Brazil? So we are trying to, in all of these features that we have rolled out with the free to play games and Fan View, we've seen that those folks that actually want to lean in and interact with the content stay around longer. They dig it more. They're in the game from beginning to the end. And so we're constantly kind of tweaking to see, how frequently we do that. How many is too many questions? What kind of stats are important, or what are people interacting with? But we feel like those feature sets have driven engagement tremendously. And so we feel like we're giving customers choice. Do you want to lean into the experience or do you want to lean back?
Cameron or Jonathon, or maybe Cameron, start with Cameron so we don't speak it. How do you see that the user experience can be improved in the fast platforms in the past pressed space, other than just creating a new channel package with a lineup of different channels and then you zap through? And so how can we make the user experience in a more modern, better way?
Well, I mean, EPGs have been around for a really, really long time. There needs to be some innovation around it. I mean, certainly, grouping channels within genres is helpful, but I think the number one issue right now is just getting to the EPG on a lot of these TV setups. So like we've launched across most of the major television OEMs, and I'd say very, very few of them have figured out how to get people into the service itself. It's the most basic thing, but it's the most difficult thing. And so it starts with that. I mean, if it takes 7 clicks to get to the EPG, there's going to be a huge problem for everybody. So unfortunately, like I don't have any sort of magical ideas around UI. I'm not a UI expert, but at the most basic level, it's how do people discover the service on the TV first and foremost, and then when they get into the service, how do you get them watching content immediately? And I feel like a lot of what I see in terms of user experience is very, very clunky right now, and it's to the detriment of everybody, including the platform folks.
Yeah, Cameron,
any comments?
Well, I agree, and I also so I spent many years as a digital agency before starting Best Ever Channels with my partner, and audience acquisition was always prime. And so I always think in terms of how can I get an audience here, and how can I get the audience to do the work? I mean, we're developing a companion app that until the EPGs catch up, until the technology is there on your television set, how can I create live chats and interaction? We have a show for wits called The Riff, where the audience actually gives the comedians subjects to riff about. And that's been done not live, but live makes a whole lot more sense. How can I do that? With a companion app in the meanwhile, while we're waiting for the sets to catch up. And I think as soon as the audience starts using these tools, then you'll see, the innovative platforms starting to integrate them. But we've got to get the audience used to it, and that can always take a little bit longer than we think.
Yeah, I think that ties into a question from one of our anonymous attendees that are, how can we differentiate a fast channel from a traditional ad-supported linear channels? It is, at the moment, they are, in most of the cases, very similar, but how can we make them a little bit more spicy, a little bit more lean in? Maybe Marisa, you can comment on that. How do you make a linear channel more lean in approach and interactive?
I think it comes down to the programming and to Jonathan's point of kind of what kind of new feature sets from a programming perspective, can you integrate? I think we can add as much as we can from the UI part of things. For example, on our homepage, all of us, every single body's experience would be different. We set up our UI in carousels, and we have some of those that are static. So everyone would see, hey, here's the live sports, what's on. But what Dan sees for recommendations would be very different than what I see. And that's what's based on his own proprietary viewership, as well as what we think, hey, he's watched this show, we think he would like this show. So we are using that to try to drive discoverability and create that personalized experience so that not everybody is getting the same force-fed content across the board.
So the question that I was about to ask myself just popped in from Sarah, actually. That was quite interesting. What are the possible challenges, and will we see personalized fast channels, that so you get a Marisa channel or a Cameron channel, or that is completely done on your viewing experience and your taste? Will we get there? Anyone feels?
I think so. I can tell you there have been several platforms we've spoken to over the past couple of years where that was certainly the intent. We haven't seen anything, in terms of a fully customizable, personalized channel yet, but I'm sure it's on the roadmap. I think it's a great idea to be able to leverage, folks' viewing data to serve them up something that's really compelling and exciting. So I would hope we see it in the next year or two.
Maybe Dan wants to comment on the technology challenges or the how do you do that with scale and
Yeah, that's the I hope we get there too. So I think that would be very cool.
It's honestly the rights that's the issue. I think technically I've actually seen a few things before, but it's the rights that people don't want to disaggregate their channels. They don't, that's been, I think legal has been the bigger issue.
Yeah, I agree. Legal is a big portion of that for sure, and the rights. But as I'm sure we're all aware that as you go towards more personalized stuff, the whole back-end economics of the distribution model changes significantly. So the CDN costs for distribution down to a personal level, I don't even want to imagine what those costs actually are, because it could be crazy. So then you kind of go, okay, am I going to get the right amount of incremental revenue and from that personalization process? So I think there's a big economic challenge there, because distributing in that kind of fashion and fanning out the CDN down to the personalized level, that is not going to be cheap. And I question whether or not there's going to be the economics from that individual distribution to warrant it. So I hope we get there, but I'm not sure we'll get there based on just pure economics in the next couple of years, maybe in 5 to 10 years. But I think there is a big struggle there, honestly, right now.
Well, I also think there's a technological adaptation problem as well from the consumer perspective, because even though it sounds fantastic, it doesn't either. I mean, a lot of the watching that occurs right now on streaming media and OTT channels happens from channel surfing. Why? Because people either don't know what's out there, or they know that they've already watched what they wanted to watch. So they're surfing for something new. And I think that behavior is ingrained in us since TV began. And while generationally, there may be eventually the technology and the legal can catch up enough that we'll all have our own channels. In the short run, I don't see it happening. Being
Yeah, there's
devil's
an element
advocate.
of, I agree, maybe during that lean in time, it actually should be, again, there's benefit of having it personalized, but maybe I'm old school. But yeah, when I'm in lean back mode, I'm truly in lean back mode, because I don't want to actually expend the energy to go out and search, back to discoverability. But yeah, I just want some things that kind of make sense to be presented to me when I'm in lean back mode, because that's a much more relaxing kind of mode, and that's the way you want to be operating, at least myself. When I'm in that mode, I'm in lean back and show me some stuff and I'll surf it through. I'm happy with that. But when I'm leaned in, then I really want to be engaged.
Yeah. We have a question that touched this in a technical way, but also a little bit on the interactivity side on it, is the constant discussion about latency and buffering and these type of things in compared to live events and betting. How do we overcome that issue? I'm not sure if anyone here is willing to answer and talk about latency when it comes to interactivity, live and betting.
I can comment to that a little bit. One of the things that we've actually been doing is, yeah, especially when you're in the gaming and the betting kind of side of things, frame accuracy is super important. Probably as just as much as the latency. So kind of within our stack, kind of coming from our customers, like some of which, guys like you on the panel, when we actually want to present data into the stream, sorry, that facilitates this betting stuff, the frame accuracy and the tagging of the metadata, the data stream that goes along with the video. We frame accurately tag the metadata that drives some of these betting events downstream along with the video. So frame accuracy of the data stream along with the video is a fundamental underpinning of enabling some of those things, even sometimes more so than the latency, because geographic latency is a constant. Sometimes you can't just get around, but the frame accuracy of the information and things that go on during the live event is something that we've tackled and had to tackle, because it just wouldn't have worked if somebody down the street got information 10 seconds sooner than somebody else, right? So that is the accuracy, frame accuracy is just as important as the latency in a lot of the applications that we see.
Cool. We have a question that we thought of maybe should have taken a little bit earlier in discussion. We talked about different platforms and that we have most of the channels are spread between the different platforms. And there is a question from Bill here, how content owners overcome the challenges of delivering content to the various platforms. Is that a big challenge too, that the different platforms have different ingest formats and different rules and regulations of sending in content, or is that a thing that is getting better in the market? I don't know if Jonathon have an experience of sending to different multiple platforms.
The technology is the easy part.
As usual.
Yeah, I mean, there are 3 or 4 major players in the technology delivery mechanisms, and you make a deal with them, and of course there's costs, and you have to weigh that all out against the benefits. But it's the relationship with the platforms and getting their attention and being doing the research and being smart enough to know what they're looking for and to fill the niches that they need to have filled in order to get the carriage, which has been getting harder and harder as the market gets more and more consolidated. So as a content owner, I think, you have options in terms of look at, you can come to independents like Best Ever Channels, or, not to be self-serving as Cinedigm or Chicken Soup for the Soul. There are people out there who are aggregating content that make it easier for the content owner to have that intermediary to encode and ingest and program the content and to actually get it up there. But if I'm a content owner, if I have a library, I would be looking in that respect right now, because as the market gets tighter and tighter, you want to be sure that you have some level of awareness and your product is out there.
Good. I think we just have a few minutes left, so I thought we should round off with letting each of you make a prediction of the fast evolution and the future of OTT. So Cameron, what's your prediction of the the evolution of FAST and the future of OTT?
I mean, it's going to grow. It's it's probably the easiest prediction I could make is like this thing it's got some real tailwinds. You know, the fact that folks really discovered it during the pandemic. I think people are out and about these days, but I think they really enjoy the service. The fact that it's free is just so important. I think the big thing going forward is data. We didn't really talk about that on this call today, but I think in order for us to really realize the potential, getting the right access to the right data across the entire ecosystem, whether it's the platform, the content provider, the advertiser, I think there's a lot of things that have to be solved. If we can solve that in the next year or two, I think the growth will continue, if not accelerate, because I think we will eat market share from SVOD in a big way. But data is going to be one of the key limiters. So I don't know if I have a specific prediction around that, but I think that's something we have to solve.
Yeah. Dan, how do you see the future of OTT as the title of the panel?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I agree that Cameron, it's only going to get larger. It's not going to stop. Getting the best out of it is probably the challenge that we face. And I think the market will force us to get into a mode where there's those lean in experiences and lean back experience, and that becomes seamless. And if we can tackle that, which I think we can, that's just going to accelerate the rate at which it actually grows.
Jonathon, what's your predictions?
Well, I think one of the biggest problems in streaming media is finding what you want to watch when you want to watch it, and that's a classic problem. Back in the day, I'm sure I don't remember, but others might, that there were TV guides and there was ways to actually cross those boundaries. I think that we need that, and I think the ones that are going to solve that problem, because it's a political and economical problem, are going to be the TV set manufacturers. And the TV set manufacturers are the ones that are gathering all of the data and that are able to target the advertising more effectively, are able to interact with the audience that is watching their TV set. And, I wouldn't be surprised if what used to be the Comcast, Time Warner / cable operator monopolies on content becomes the TV manufacturers monopolies. And even the platforms that they're carrying may have to be, second to the platforms themselves, the TV set manufacturers. That's my prediction.
Marisa.
For us, there are still millions and millions of households that will turn off of cable and cut the cord. So for us, the potential is sky's the limit to tap into those millions of households. So for us, our goal is to basically aggregate as much sports content as possible, give customers choice, and basically stay as affordable as possible. Give everybody a one-stop shop to be able to find the content they would need, the live events they need at an affordable price point, which is amazing. Even when you look at the fact of, hey, even if you cut the cord, average cable price is what, $130, $140. Our entry level price is half of that. And there's no truck rolls, there's no equipment fees, you can cancel anytime. So if we can offer our customers that flexibility and choice, I think sky's the limit with our growth potential.
Elizabeth, quickly, because now I saw Eric enter the scene, so that means that so that's final words with your experience. Where are we heading?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the future is actually going to look a lot like the past, but with a lot more expansive partnerships that reach well beyond just channels. So it's the world of choice for the consumer, but I think it's up to the industry to present that in a manner where all these services can shine. So thank you again for the opportunity to join the conversation.
Thank you, and thank you all. I think this has been a great discussion. We could have lasted for another hour, but when Eric shows up, I know that it's a sign that we're end of the hour.
Yeah, it's in my job description. I got to do it. That was terrific. Thanks so much, everyone. And thank you to our audience for joining us. Speaking of the audience, our Amazon gift card winner is, and my apologies, my French pronunciation is not great, Jean-Christophe Perrier. Maybe that was close. Watch your email and you'll get information about your gift card next week. Also, thanks again to Evertz for sponsoring this panel and Media Silo for sponsoring all of our sessions. We'll be back in about 30 minutes with a panel talking about brave new monetization strategies. Hope to see you then. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks all.